Because that's not good.
See, I read it like this. Is that what you're reading from the translation? I read it like
I'm
this.
not looking at
No,
it, I'm just
I read it like this. That Yatzer Shlish, the third, came out. He sold it to a non-Jew. V'chazar v'Yatzer Shlish, acher, and then another third comes out. And at this point, where the majority is out, is it really sanctified now? Or is it not sanctified? Because now you have the majority. So I was reading the word v'chazar, not as it goes back in. I was reading the word v'chazar as it continued. V'chazar returned and did more. And it birthed more. What does the English say? Does anyone have? Does it say something returned, or does it say and then proceeded? I'm sorry?
It doesn't say. It says
another third. It proceeded. Okay, you confused me with the word because v'chazar could be translated differently.
So maybe it works that way.
Right, and then it proceeded to go out.
No, sells the third. It sells the first third. Right?
Sells the first third.
Okay.
Then another third comes out.
Okay.
And now we're discussing: is it?
It just says and then another.
And then another. That's v'chazar. Okay. And we're discussing. Just wait for the Gemara. The Gemara is going to explain it. So it's a machlekes Rav Huna and Rabbi. Rav Huna and Rabbi. Rabbi and Rav Huna. See, Rabbi and Rav Huna are this second and third generation Amoraim in Babylonia. Rav Huna says Kaddish, that the animal is sanctified, which means that it wasn't sold. Rabbi Amarena Kaddish. Rabbi says no, you sold it. It was a valid sale. It's not sanctified. Rav Huna Amar Kaddish. Rav Huna says that it's sanctified, and there was no sale.
How do you
know Rav Huna is a kohen?
I don't know. I think so. I don't remember.
I don't know that.
From the word huna, it's like kahuna.
I don't know that.
I think I don't know. I'm not sure. It's something to check.
Rabba may be a kohen because Rabba comes from Eily. I don't know of Rav Huna. Rabba it says comes from Eily. So
I'm confused.
Rav Chisda is a kohen. Rav Huna says Kaddish.
So he says it's retroactively.
Kasav l'mafreya Kaddish. He says once the animal is born, it goes back, and l'mafreya retroactive. It goes back, and even the nafak leruba. Once the majority goes out, that it was originally this was a sacrifice. And my dezavin like klum zavin, this that he sold was never sold. Once it's born, we realize this was a sacrifice all along. Rabba Amarena Kaddish, Rabba holds it's not sanctified. Kasavar Mikanal Abba Kaddish, he holds from here and onward it's sanctified. My dezavin shaper zavin, and it was a valid sale. So in other words, how does the sanctity of the Bechor work? Does it work that when the entire animal is out, or when the majority is out, I look back at the animal and I say that it was all sanctified as it was coming out? Or do I say that it becomes sanctified only from the moment that the majority is out, but it doesn't go back and give me that view, that retroactive, that it was entirely sanctified?
Does it make a difference how much time the baby come out? Or
no.
It's not.
No. But they follow their own position, their own principles that they have from other places. The Itmar was stated, Yatzer Shlish Derech Doifen. Let's say a third came out cesarean, Shnei Shlishi Derech Rechem, and 2/3 came out through the birth canal. Now, this would have to be that it went back in. It would be hard to imagine that how you would get 1/3 out here and 2/3 out there, and it's still around. So it must be that it went back in into the cut of the cesarean, and it went back in, and it came out the other way. So yes, correct. So Rav Huna Amar Eina Kaddish. Rav Huna says that it's not sanctified. Oh, this is interesting. This is a different opinion. Rabba Amar Kaddish. Rabba says that it is sanctified. Exactly the opposite. Rav Huna Amar Eina Kaddish. Rav Huna says it's not sanctified. Rav Huna Tameh, he goes according to his reason. Damar Lamafreya Kaddish. He says that you have to look back retroactively. Veruba Kama Lesa Berechem. The very first third did not come through the birth canal, didn't come through the opening of the womb. The first third came out
like cesarean.
So now, even though 2/3 was born through the womb, but that wasn't. When I look back retroactively at the birth of this, the first third was not through the womb. That would be like the first third.
Sold to go.
Yeah. But it's very different because the first third sold to the guy according to Rabbi doesn't work. Why? Because when I look back, I say that this was actually a sacrifice. So I go back in my camera. I go back once it's born. I go back in my camera and I watch it again. And once I know what the end result, I go back and I watch it again and I see how this took place. So if the first third came through it was a cesarean, then it's not sanctified. But if the first third was sold, then you had no rights to sell that.
But if you agree that
because we see how it came
You
out.
can have it both ways. In other words, if it's a cesarean, then it's only 1/3 comes out, and you said what?
If it's a cesarean, according to Rav Huna, it's not sanctified.
Right, because only 1/3 came out. But if had he sold it, Rav Huna would say,
if he would have sold it
to a goy, it would have been.
It would have been. Well, in that case, there's two separate cases here. One case is where the first third it came out naturally, and the first third came out and it was sold to a non-Jew. Rav Huna says it's not a sale. The animal is a sacrifice. You can't sell a sacrifice. Then you have another case where Rav Huna says the first third was born through the cesarean, and then it came through the womb. So he says over there it's not a sacrifice. In other words, even though you did something over here, you sold it, but you had no rights to sell it after the fact. You had no rights to. I go back and I look at it. I look at the original birth to see, was this done in a halachic way that would turn it into a sacrifice. That's what I'm doing. And because this natural birth, even though it was sold to a guy, would have been a sacrifice, so therefore I view it as a sacrifice. Rabbi Amar Kaddish, Rabbi says that it's sanctified. He says the opposite here, where it's born 2/3 naturally, but the first third was cesarean. Rabbi Letamei Amar Mikanal Abba Kaddish. Ruba Derech Rechem Nafak. I look at the end. The end of it had 2/3 that were natural. And so therefore, Rabbi looks at the end of the story, and Rav Huna looks at the beginning of the story. Well, it's not just the beginning of the story; it's the retroactive, the beginning of the story. It's tzricha. Now, even though they say the same thing twice, it's the same logic that Rav Huna has for the sale. That's the same logic that he has for the cesarean. I have to say both. Diashmin and Baha, because if I would only talk about the first case where it's sold to a guy, Bahakam Rav Huna, over there Rav Huna says that it's considered a sacrifice, Mishum Dilakula, because he doesn't want to be lenient if you would say that it was sold, that it's a good sale. Aval Bahach, but in the next case where he says that it's not considered a birth, Dilachumra, over there if you would say the other way it would be a chumrah, we would say that it is a sacrifice. Maybe Rav Huna would really be strict. V'yitmar Baha, and if we would only say the second case, where it's the cesarean, 1/3 and then 2/3 natural, over here Rabbi says that it's considered a sacrifice because he's being strict. Aval Baha, but in the first case where Rabbi's being lenient, maybe he would say that he would agree to Rav Huna that it's not considered a sale because over there Rav Huna is more strict. In other words, maybe they weren't really clear about their opinions and they were just being strict. So tzricha, it's necessary. Tanan. It's taught in a Mishnah. Hamavakeres. Let's go. Let's push through another few minutes. An animal that's giving birth. Oh, it's Rosh Chodesh.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we'll stop over here. Okay, we're a page behind.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a plan.
יש לילה לגברים